This is a 211 PC robbery arrest scenario. At this point in time, you've either finished your 211 robbery crime reports or you're still working on your report. This situation, time-wise, is approximately 20 minutes after the robbery. You may recall from the robbery broadcast, there was a 211 at the 7-Eleven store at Westerns and Rosecrans. There were shots fired and a victim down. A suspect was last seen traveling northbound on Western Avenue. At that point, you became the handling officer. You conducted the investigation, took interviews, collected evidence, and wrote that report. For this scenario, you got to be somebody else. It is the same day, and approximately the same time. You're going to be in a few miles away from the crime scene, and you're going to hear the first broadcast of the 211 with shots fired. And at that point, you're going to drive to a location where you think the suspect might possibly pass through your area. So in this case, that location is going to be Hawthorne and Imperial Highway. So when you hear the first broadcast, you move to the location and you begin looking for the possible suspect vehicle, which was reported as a gray Camaro with a possible California license plate of 679 Lincoln. You'll then hear a second broadcast, basically a rebroadcast of the first. This is going to be about 20 hours. Now, at that time, you're going to see a possible suspect vehicle pass your location traveling westbound on Imperial. The vehicle will go through a red light, violation 21453A of the vehicle code. You'll begin to follow the vehicle, and when you get close enough, you're going to notice that the license number is 769 Lincoln Boy Sam. It is a similar number to the broadcast. You'll run the plate and discover that it's an LA Police Department stolen vehicle from Pacific Division. You'll activate your emergency equipment. That would be the lights and the siren. The vehicle will then accelerate and attempt to evade arrest. And we're going to go through this part of it later when we get to that part, but this is the overview. You'll chase this vehicle down Imperial in full pursuit. The vehicle will eventually stop after turning northbound on Pershing Drive, just north of Imperial. The suspect will be taken into custody. That is, in essence, the scenario. So you're about ready to hear the first broadcast.
I need to stand by for a 211 broadcast. 9 Lincoln 3 Sam, 9 Lincoln 5 Sam, 9 Lincoln 1 Sam. A 211 just occurred at 7-Eleven, 12727 Western Avenue. Suspect was last seen northbound Western Avenue driving a gray Camaro. Break. Stand by for further. Unit suspects is WMA 20 to 25, blonde hair, wearing a yellow shirt and blue jeans. Break. Units further, shots fired at that location, one victim down, paramedics en route. Break. Unit's possible license is 679 Lincoln. 9 Lincoln 3 handling report.
9 Lincoln 3 Sam, 10-4, Hawthorne and Rosecrans.
You've now heard the pursuit, you've heard the broadcast of the 211. You've seen the suspect vehicle. You've activated your emergency equipment. The vehicle at this point is traveling rapidly westbound on Imperial. It is going through multiple red lights, first at Hawthorne, then Sepulveda, and Main Street in El Segundo on Imperial Highway westbound. While the vehicle is doing this, it's attempting to evade. It's swerving from lane to lane. That is vehicle code section 21658A. You get a pace on that vehicle, and the vehicle is traveling approximately 90 miles per hour, a little over 90 miles per hour. And as the vehicle approaches Pershing Drive, it attempts an unsafe, high-speed right-hand turn by swerving across two lanes of traffic, the westbound lanes. And as it enters the turn, it starts to lose control. fishtails, goes over the center divider, and then comes to a stop against the west curb of Pershing Drive facing northbound. At that point, you are going to take this suspect into custody, pull him out of the vehicle. He does have a slight injury, apparently from the traffic collision, so you will need to get paramedics to provide treatment to him. You're going to search and handcuff the suspect and place him in the back of your police unit for transportation to the station for booking. And this is what happened next. Rebroadcast.
All units, shots fired, 211 just occurred, 711 store, Rosecrans and Western. Suspect vehicle is a Chevy Camaro, possible gray, partial license plate 679 Lincoln, more to follow. Units continuing, suspect is WMA, blonde hair, wearing a yellow shirt, blue jeans, red running shoes. Suspect is armed with a .45 caliber weapon. One victim is down. Suspect last seen northbound on Western. 9 Lincoln 3 and 5 are handling.
9 Lincoln 7, Sam.
9 Lincoln 7, Sam, go ahead.
9 Lincoln 7, Sam, unfollowed a possible suspect vehicle westbound on Imperial from Hawthorne. License number is 769 Lincoln Boy Sam. Driver is a WMA, blonde hair with yellow shirt. Vehicle is a gray Camaro.
9 Lincoln 724, 769 Lincoln Boy Sam. 9 Lincoln 7, be advised, a vehicle is an LAPD stolen out of Pacific Division. 9 Lincoln 9 Sam and a unit to back 9 Lincoln 7 Sam is following a possible suspect vehicle westbound on Imperial from Hawthorne Boulevard. All units stand by. T49 and 10 Sam.
9 Lincoln 7, Sam, in pursuit westbound from Imperial to Hippolyta.
10-4 westbound Imperial from Sepulveda.
9 Lincoln 7, Sam, crossing Main Street 90 plus, roll me a backup.
Oh, Imperial and Main backups en route.
7 Sam, now northbound on Pershing.
10-4 Pershing northbound.
9 Lincoln 7 Sam, code 4, 1 in custody, 9 and 10 Sam are 97.
10-4 code 4.
Now, the pursuit that you just heard discussed, and you also heard the audio tape of the pursuit, that information is going to be documented in your initial actions and observations section of your arrest report narrative. So going back to the beginning of that part again, as you position yourself at the intersection of Hawthorne and Imperial, the first paragraph of your actions and observations ought to be following your first broadcast. You position yourself at that location, you hear the second broadcast, and then you see the vehicle. The rest of that section will be the pursuit, what you did and what you saw. At the point that you place the suspect into custody, you've removed him from the vehicle, placed him in your back of your police unit for transportation, we're going to move on into the other section. The suspect is now under arrest, and that will be documented in your arrest section of the narrative. With the suspect in custody, we need to do the search of his vehicle, and this is all going to be documented in the arrest scene search. So, walking to the vehicle, looking inside, at the front of the Camaro is what appears to be a handgun. It's lying on the center console with the the butt of the weapon toward the window. It's partially covered by what appears to be a white T-shirt. Looking at the back of the vehicle is loose currency scattered on the floor and on the seat of the back seat. We're going to collect that money, but we're also going to seize that weapon. We're going to unload it. We're going to find a live round in the chamber. We're going to eject that round and recover it separately. It'll be booked separately when we get to the property report. And we're going to remove the magazine, and we're going to discover that there are 6 live rounds in the magazine. That magazine and that ammunition will be also booked separately. Of course, the gun is going to be booked as well. We have collected the money. We've searched the rest of the car. We cannot find anything of evidentiary value. We have asked for a tow truck to impound the vehicle, so we're going to impound this vehicle held for evidence. Keep in mind it's also a recovered stolen vehicle from LAPD Pacific Division. To summarize the arrest scene search, we have investigated, we've examined, we've collected evidence from the interior of the car. We also need to take a look at the outside of the car. There's nothing of particular note on the outside of the car. It was involved in a minor traffic collision. It also has been pretty well dented up, perhaps even before the collision. So at this point in time, the car is ready for transport back to the police impound lot. It is now an item of evidence and is being held for evidence. We're going to check the trunk pursuant to inventory standard procedures for an arrest, and we're finding nothing of any significance in the trunk. Now, at this point, you will have started your witness identification section. So we're going to ask for a police unit at the scene. Now, that would be the robbery, the 211 at the 7-Eleven store, a separate unit. We're going to ask that unit to transport the witness from that case to our location. You may recall that the rules of field identification require that the witness be transported to the suspect's location, not the other way around. So you're going to have to create a police officer or two to be involved in that transport. The other thing you have to remember to document is the admonishment. Have one of those officers admonish the witness, and that's exactly how you can say it in your narrative. You don't need to go into detail as to what that admonishment was. We have a form that has that admonishment on it that will be attached to the report. So to repeat, have one of these officers admonish the witness, have the witness acknowledge the admonishment, understand it. At that point, have the witness driven to the arrest location and have the witness asked by this officer you've created whether or not this is the person that she saw. The witness will make a positive identification, will say that yes, that's the person you saw holding the gun on the clerk, and I would use those exact words too, in quotes. And that completes the witness identification. The witness can then be returned back to the crime scene.
Yeah, that's the guy. That's the one who was in the 7-Eleven with the gun.
At this point, we're ready to document the conclusion. Now, the conclusion of an arrest report is a little different than the conclusion of a crime report. In the arrest report, we need to clearly state why we arrested this person. And certainly your probable cause has to be the main feature. of this section, of this first paragraph. Thinking back to what initiated this call, it started with the broadcast of the 211, including the suspect description and the vehicle description. And that vehicle description also included a partial license plate. So how I would write this is, in the first paragraph, that you arrested this suspect based upon the broadcast that included the suspect description and the vehicle description, the fact that you observed a vehicle matching that description along with the suspect driving it also matched the suspect description, the fact that the suspect evaded arrest, that evidence of the crime was found inside the vehicle, and that a witness subsequently identified the suspect. So based upon all those facts, you made the arrest. Additionally, you want to kind of wrap up what happened to the suspect in the vehicle. The suspect was transported to the station for booking, where he was to be booked for 836.3 of the Penal Code, attempt 187, and 211 in addition to other charges. That completes the conclusion section. I'd like to shift our attention to the face pages and forms involved in the arrest report package. We've already reviewed the narrative. The forms, we would want to start with the booking form. That should be page number 1. Don't forget to put sample at the top of the page. In the upper left-hand corner is the booking number. You may make that number up, any 7-digit number. Location booked. The location for this arrest, since it was made near the Venice area, West LA, let's make it, well, actually you can make it any police station of your choice. Driver's license number, none in his possession. His name you may make up. His address you may make up, both address and city and so on. He is a male. He is Caucasian, blonde hair, blue eyes. We're going to make his height about 6'2", 185 pounds. Date of birth you may make up. The vehicle license number is 769 Lincoln Boy Sam. Now, I have to point out that it's very important that you get this license number accurately, because we have the partial plate in the broadcast. We have the real plate that we've identified during the pursuit. If you put some other license number in that block, we're going to have some explaining to do when the case gets to court. So it is 769 Lincoln Boy Sam, or LBS. You can make up a nickname and also a birthplace for this suspect. The file number is going to be the DR number of the 211 crime report. The next section to the right of that is additional charges, and I would just put C attached. Arresting agency is the police department of your choice. Date and time arrested. The date will be today's date. And as far as time is concerned, we should probably think about the time for a minute. So let me run through the time parameters. The initial broadcast was 13:05 hours. That was of the 211 at the 7-Eleven store. I would probably wait a figure about 15 minutes before you observed the vehicle, so that would put it at 13:20 hours when you spotted the vehicle and initiated the pursuit. I would add about another 10 minutes for the pursuit, so that takes you to about 13:30 hours. You're going to need about 45 minutes at the scene to make the arrest and have the witness identification and those activities. So that's going to take you to about 13:15 at the scene. Probably 30 minutes to get to the station for booking. So it looks like your booking time will be 14:45 hours. I think I said earlier 13:15 with your activities at the scene. I meant 14:15. So booking time is going to be about 1445 hours. Location of the arrest is Pershing Drive, just north of Imperial. Total bail in this case is going to be $25,000. The charge block, it's important to get this right. The charges are rank ordered, most serious first, and I only want one charge in this block on the face page. Now, this one charge is going to require 3 penal code sections to explain it, so here they are. The first penal code section is 836.3 PC. The second penal code section is 664 PC. The third is 187 PC. And taken all together, that means suspicion of attempt murder. Remember that this guy shot the clerk at the 7-Eleven store, and that equated to an attempt murder. Jail location is the jail of your choice. The arraignment date. It will be at least 2 court days from the time of the booking. Now, we're not going to count the day of the arrest. So, the class is viewing this scenario on a Wednesday, so that's probably the day we should use. If you're maybe doing a makeup, you should use that Wednesday as well. The day of the arrest doesn't count. The next day would be Thursday. That's the first court day. The next day is Friday. That's the second court day. Unless there's a holiday involved, and we don't count the weekends, it looks like the arraignment day will be the following Monday at 1300 hours. I would use West LA for the court. I think that's probably closest to the location of arrest. You can make up a social security number for this suspect. On observable physical oddities, we're going to give this suspect a tattoo on his left forearm. Actually, 2 tattoos. The first one's going to be a swastika, a Nazi swastika. And the second is going to be a combining of 2 letters, A, B. The right-hand slant of the A serves as the left part of the letter B, and then the loops after that, AB, which you probably realize stands for Aryan Brotherhood. Occupation, unemployed. Clothing worn. This is another one of those important blocks that we have to get correct. The suspect was wearing a yellow pocket T-shirt, blue jeans, and red running shoes. Special medical problems, you can give him a cut on the forehead that actually resulted from the traffic collision. He was treated at the scene for that. Location of the vehicle is going to be the police impound lot. In case of emergency, notify, you can make that up. Arresting officer, that would be you. Booking employee, make somebody up. Searching officer is you. And transporting officer is also you. Cash retained, none. We're not going to let them keep any money. Property retained, none. Cash deposited. You can make up a small amount of money that could have been removed from his pockets, but please do not list the $200 we recovered from the car. That's evidence, money that was stolen from the cash register at the 7-Eleven store. We certainly don't want to give him that money back. That's evidence. Property. I think we're going to give this guy a yellow metal hoop earring. I believe one of the witnesses might have mentioned that. And that's it. The other clothing items we're going to book as evidence. The shirt may have gunpowder residue on it. We would want that. the red running shoes, I just think as a matter of policy, we ought to book shoes. You never can tell if footprints could be involved. And also, by the way, I'd like to point out, speaking of gunshot residue, while the suspect was at the scene, we will have taken gunshot residue test, or we would have used a test kit and attempted to collect gunshot residue powder, and we would have found gunshot residue and recovered it. So that'll be an additional item of evidence. That completes the booking page. The second page in the packet is going to be additional charges and hold record. Booking number will be the same. In fact, all the information on the top will be the same. You have that information. Now, with this form, the first three columns, now remember, and I'm sorry to have to explain this, but I do get mistakes on this, columns run up and down. The first three columns, warrant, number, court, and date of issuance, we're not going to use. You're going to line them out. Now, very typically with a suspect in an arrest like this, the guy probably has warrants, but it only complicates what we're trying to do. So we're going to assume for this case he has no warrants. We're not going to use those columns. So therefore, the first column we're going to use is the one that says charge, code number, and definition. First charge on this page is going to be the next most serious charge, and that would be 211 PC, robbery. The arraignment date will be the same that we had on page 1. It is not an in-custody crime, so we're not going to indicate that. The next charge is going to be another felony. It's going to be 459 PC, burglary. Now that may seem strange to you, but if you consider the elements of burglary, the unlawful entry of a person into a building or structure with the intent to commit petty or grand larceny or any felony, I think it's safe to say that this man entered the 7-Eleven with the intent to commit a robbery, although he may have had permission to enter as a customer, certainly not to commit a robbery. So we're going to go ahead and add burglary to the charges. The DA, if he doesn't like that charge, he can dismiss it. The next charge is also a felony. This is a vehicle code section. It's 2800.2 of the vehicle code. That's felony evading arrest. Now, it's really important that when we write our narrative, that we include those vehicle code sections in the narrative, because that helps justify it. It supports the elements to 2800.2, for one thing. Secondly, flight is always circumstantial evidence of guilt, so our narrative will support the flight, which is an indicator of guilt. So we're going to include this charge that helps us in both areas. And also I wanted to remind you about including the vehicle code sections in the narrative during the pursuit. Please do not list any vehicle code sections on any of the booking forms. That's for the narrative only. The next two violations are going to be weapons violations because of the loaded gun in the car. The first one is 120.25 of the Penal Code. That's a concealed weapon in a vehicle. The second one is 120.31 of the Penal Code. That's a loaded firearm in a vehicle. That completes the charges. Make sure that there is a hold. If you'll notice on the about 2/3 of the way down on the left-hand side is a unit or agency placing additional charge or hold. That would be LAPD Pacific Division, so why don't you make sure you include that. Total bail, $25,000. That completes the additional charge and holds record. The next page is the probable cause declaration. This form is pretty important too. Well, they all are, but this one, we have to establish our probable cause to the judge. The rule on this is that we have 48 clock hours. Now, that's not the court hours I talked about for arraignment. This is 48 clock hours to have a judge make a determination as to whether there's sufficient probable cause to hold the person in custody. It's almost a little bit like habeas corpus. The case decision behind that was McLaughlin versus Riverside County, and because of that case, this form became a requirement, and this procedure became a requirement. So let's look at the form. Officer's name on the right-hand side, upper right-hand side, that would be you. You can create a fax number for yourself or your agency and also a telephone number. Fax 2, that is going to be the judge's fax number, and you can also make that up along with a telephone number. All the information on the first 3 rows you have. For booking charges, though, I'd use the 2 most serious ones. I would use the suspicion of attempt murder and robbery. You have the date and time of the arrest. So the 48-hour expiration date and time would be 48 hours from that particular time. Arresting agency, that would be the police department of your dreams. And you are the arresting officer. The key section in this report is what follows. Facts establishing elements and identification of the defendant. I do not want you, nor would any judge, to rewrite the report, the arrest report. This should be just a short paragraph, a few sentences, establishing the elements, the probable cause, and how the defendant was identified. Probably not more than 3 or 4 sentences. Below that is a signature block. That would be for you, the date that you would have completed this form with your signature. There's some language below that on the basis of, and we're going to use officer's declaration, so you would check off that first box. The next signature block would be the judge. So you can add a couple of hours to whenever you would have faxed this. You can print the judge's name and then sign it along with the date and time. That completes the probable cause declaration form. The next page is the property report form. Now, you've used this before. You used it for the burglary and you also used it for the robbery, so it's the same form. In this case, I'm just going to review the evidence items that should be documented in this form. Let's start with a 1982 Chevy Camaro, primer gray in color. Include the license number, and where it says serial number, make up a VIN number. Now, you've seen the picture, so you can describe it. Second item of evidence that I would list will be the handgun. It's a .45 caliber Colt Gold Cup semi-auto pistol, blue steel in color. Make up a serial number. The next item would be one .45 caliber ACP round removed from the chamber of the above weapon. Next item would be a .45 caliber magazine containing 6 live rounds. Next item would be $200 in U.S. currency, assorted denominations. Next item would be a GSR kit or gunshot residue kit. Next item would be the white T-shirt that covered the partially covered the handgun in the front of that suspect's car. Next item should be the suspect's yellow T-shirt. And as I said earlier, I would seize his shoes as a matter of policy as evidence. That completes the evidence. The next form is going to be the police department photo log. Now you've used this form before, so the top part, go ahead and complete it on your own. Now, any place where it says DR number or case number, I want you adding the booking number as well. Both of them. You are the photographer. In this particular case, we're not going to shoot as many photographs as we would at a crime scene, but I would certainly shoot the interior of the car and get a close-up of the handgun and a fairly close shot of the money, showing all the money. It obviously can't be a close-up because you want to capture the whole amount of that money in that photograph. I would also get an overall shot of the vehicle so that it can be identified, and make sure you get at least one shot showing the license number. And that should be it. The next form is going to be field identification, and in terms of order, I'd actually like to see this form right after the probable cause declaration form. The key feature of this form, the key issue, is whose name goes on the top. It cannot be your name. You have to make up a transporting officer or two. As I said, the rules require that the witness be brought to the arrest location. Well, you're the arresting officer and you're approximately 7 to 10 miles away from the scene of the crime. So you logically would ask another unit to transport the witness who was still at the crime scene. So make up two officers, list them on this form. When this witness finally makes the identification, and recall in the narrative we talked about the admonishment. The admonishment is listed in this form or on this form. You can see it. Right below the admonishment is a signature block for the witness indicating that they were admonished, and print that witness's name. You may make those names up. If the witness gave any specific language or words, we would want to document that in quotes, and this witness did. As you may recall, the witness said, yes, that's the man pointing the gun at the clerk. That's it for field identification. The next report form is the Highway Patrol 180 form. Now, looking at this form, it looks kind of busy. There are a lot of blocks and information to fill out, but it's really not that complicated. At the top, you can figure that out: reporting department, date and time of report, location code you can make up, file number. There again, I want you to use both the DR number from the 211 and the booking number. Make up the odometer reading. The VIN is not clear in the system, so you'd mark no. Neither is the license number. You have the time dispatch was notified. Log number, make up any 4-digit number. This car is a 1982 Chevrolet Camaro Coupe, C-O-U-P-E, for body type. Color, primer gray. You have the license number. There's only one license number on the vehicle, or one license plate on the vehicle. That's on the rear, which, by the way, is additional probable cause for your stop. For a month and year of registration, why don't you make current month and year on the tags a couple of years from this year. Just add 2 years to the current year. State is California. Make up a VIN number. Leave the engine number alone. We'll just leave that blank. Take a stab at valuing the car, valuation. Make up the registered owner and check off same as RO for the legal owner. Down below there, check off impounded and also recovered. Make up the tow company and towed to police impound lot. Airbag no. Drivable yes. VIN switch no. For the conditions, and please fill up all the blocks that apply, either yes or no. We're not going to release this vehicle. Going back, I think I missed a block. Going back above the checkoffs where it says storage authority, let's use 22651 VC. On the vehicle released to, it hasn't been released, so we're not going to fill any of that information out. And in the lower third, where it says stolen vehicle, embezzled vehicle, and plates, it's true, it is a stolen vehicle, but it wasn't from our jurisdiction. This was LAPD stolen, so they've already completed a report. So this is not our stolen report. We don't need to check that off or fill that information in. Down below, where there's a short little narrative, just say C, arrest report. You can put driver's name there, just above there. Arrested, yes. Reported by, now that's for the arrest, that's reported by your department. If there's any damage, shade in the appropriate areas. Your signature goes on the lower left-hand side. We're not going to complete the stolen information on the top of the backside, but there is a spot in the center for recovery narrative. Go ahead and complete the recovery information because you did recover this vehicle. And where it says narrative, just say C report. That completes the CHP 180 form. The final form in the package, and probably the one that is the least important, is the crime report face page. This is not to be confused with the crime report that was used for the 211 crime report, which actually was an attempt murder, 664-187. That's a form that the officer at the 211 scene was taken. This report is primarily for statistical reasons, and we're going to document those crimes which were previously unreported. There were 3 of them, and I'm going to get into what they are specifically in a moment, but the most significant of these unreported crimes, and which we were a witness to, was the evading arrest, the 2800.2 VC. We will need a new DR number, no booking number this time where it says case number, a new DR number, not the one used for the 211. The code section is going to be 2800.2 VC, not PC, but V as in Victor, C. The crime, felony, evading, arrest. There's actually another term used for it in the vehicle code. It's called driving recklessly while evading arrest, but that's a bit wordy, so we're going to use felony, evading, arrest. UCR code, make up any 5-digit number. Secondary counts and other counts. This is where we're going to get our weapons violations in. It doesn't matter which one goes where. They're both of equal value. That's the 120.25 and the 120.31. VC. Correction, PC. Location of crime, you know where that is. Date reported and time reported, that's when You spotted this vehicle and you engaged in the pursuit. Date, day, and time, you have that information. Now here's where it gets a bit tricky. The victim is state of California. Right below there for the reporting party, the RP, that's you. Fill that part out only partially. Put your name and occupation. We do not want your resident address. And for business address, just put your police agency. You can make up a business phone, and that's it. If you have a partner, you can list the partner as a secondary witness and fill that information out. It's up to you. We will not complete the victim vehicle information. Doesn't apply. Check off whatever evidence factors apply on the lower right-hand side. Your name goes as reporting officer. On the back side, most of this will not apply. Probably what you're going to want to fill out will be where it says public on the left-hand side and vehicle. Moving over to the fourth column, you may find some factors under suspect's actions. And that should be it. That is the completion of the last form, and that is the end of the exercise.